Welcome back to the channel and thank you for watching. As I said previously, I promised I would come back if the BBC responded to me with regard to my questions about YouTubers, live streamers, independent video creators, as opposed to TV companies, and whether or not there is a definitive list of TV companies. Because of course, if it's a definitive TV company and a live television broadcast and you are watching it or recording it, you need a TV license. But my question also extended to whether or not you're watching a live stream by a YouTube independent creator such as myself, whether or not they consider that you need a TV license for that. Of course, my view is that you do not. So I'm very pleased to say that the BBC press office did respond to me, although the email opened with, "We don't wish to provide a comment." Although they did provide quite substantial guidance, which I'm very pleased about, which I think is very helpful indeed. So I thought I would take you through that guidance provided directly from the BBC press office on behalf of TV licensing, so that we can all better understand how they view or what guidance they provide in respect of YouTube creators and a definitive list of TV companies. So without further ado, let's get into the contents of that guidance. So, the guidance provides as follows. It begins, a TV license is needed to legally watch or record television programs live, which we all know, i.e. as they are being transmitted and received by the rest of the audience, on any channel, via any platform, and on any device, and to watch or download BBC programs on BBC iPlayer, which we already know, which I've already explained a number of times. This includes programs on free and paid-for channels received via an aerial, a subscription satellite or cable television service, for example Sky or Virgin Media, or streamed online. So far, accords with our understanding. Channels received on any platform or device from overseas at the time as they are being broadcast in the host country, which is, as I've said, if you're watching a television program from India or Australia, wherever it might be. I've said before, if you're watching a live television program or recording a live television program from any of those places, even though they're not hosted in the UK, they are hosted abroad, you still need a TV license. So again, this accords with exactly what I've previously said. Channels streamed online at the same time as they are being received by the members of the audience, whether or not they are also being broadcast by any other means. So this means if they are broadcasting it live on YouTube as well as live on TV, a standard one for this would be Sky News or anything like that. If they are broadcasting it live as a live stream on YouTube and live as a live TV program service on regular standard TV, then again you need a TV license if you're watching that live on any YouTube channel by said company. But remember, it's the list of companies that I found particularly difficult, because there is no, that I could find, definitive list of what is a TV company or television program service for the purposes of the legislation, which formed part of my question. The guidance goes on. This means that for YouTube, a license is needed to watch programs on channels streamed live, but not on-demand content. Also, no license is needed for content that cannot reasonably be regarded as forming part of a television program service. For example, non-broadcast content, such as on-demand video clips and other user-generated content. So this, to me, albeit this be guidance, you understand, from the press office, so not a definitive response, but guidance to follow. As I always say, my videos are guidance, so it's only fair that it's been provided as guidance by the press office. And I would urge you to take it as such. So a license is not needed for content that, and this is the key part for me, cannot reasonably be regarded as forming part of a television program service. For example, non-broadcast content such as on-demand video clips, that's just a regular YouTube video, or other user-generated content. Now, as I've said a number of times now, even if I am doing a live stream, it is user-generated content. So, as is my explanation previously, it could not be reasonably, I cannot be reasonably be regarded as a television program service, because I'm an individual. I'm a barrister who helps you understand law on my channel. I am not a TV company. I am not a television program service. I am an individual, independent creator. I'm independent through and through, both as a barrister and as a content creator. So again, for the purposes of this guidance, my professional interpretation of this is exactly as I've said previously, that user-generated content such as myself, an independent creator, generating live streams, even if they are live, in my view, cannot reasonably be regarded as forming part of a television program service, therefore does not need a TV license. Reading on. For a service to require a license to watch, it must be a television program service. A number of factors would be taken into account when considering this, including, for example, whether a service has a regular schedule of programs, how continuous a service is, editorial control and consistency, and the quality of production or editorial values. Now this bit is a little bit more nuanced and difficult, but if you allow me to put my interpretive spin on it, albeit a professional one, albeit you're not instructing me, this is not legal advice, but my interpretation on this would be a regular schedule of programs. That would be a bit like the news at 9 or the news at 10 or something like that. But it doesn't end there. If I started doing a program called The News at 10 by BlackBeltBarrister, that doesn't automatically make it a television program, in my view. How continuous a service is. Well, arguably my service is continuous because I've been doing this near on every day now. Not quite. I think I've missed 1 or 2 days over the last 2 years or so. But continuous a service? My service is sort of ad hoc, really. I release videos as and when I think of something to do. I record it either here or on the couch and I release it. So you don't expect, let's say, a broadcast from me at 9 or 10 or 11 or 12 or 1 or whenever. You expect it from me when I release it. I release it, YouTube surfaces it to you as and when the algorithm decides as much. Make sure you subscribe and hit the like button if you haven't already. Otherwise it doesn't end up in your browse feed and then you don't see it. But moving on. Editorial control and consistency. Now I have no editor. I have no editorial control. Consistency, yes, I've got a consistency in I'm always producing content, but it's not consistent in the sense that I have a regular news slot, a regular soap slot, or what have you. It's just me. I am just a user generating content. So in my view, I am still a user generating content as opposed to being editorially controlled in any sense. And it says, for example, whether a service has a regular schedule of programs. And as I said, I do stuff every day, but I'm not exactly regimented on a patterned schedule. So I agree to an extent the lines are blurred slightly here, but I would certainly say, in my view, for the most part, it would not include creators like me. And finally, bit of tongue-in-cheek here, the quality of production or editorial values. I hope that my production quality has gone up over the time that I've been doing these videos, but it's certainly not broadcast quality that you'd expect from the BBC or from Sky or anyone else. Obviously, I can't elevate myself to those production values. I bought a nice camera. I edit as best I can. I bought a new sofa so that you get some nice background and things like that. But apart from that, quality of production, it's just me. What you see is what you get. I'm a creator. You get me. If you want to watch me, you watch me. And that's as far as it goes. Editorial values, well, I share with you my values sometimes, but I wouldn't say it's editorial values. It's just me as a creator. Again, it comes back to me as an independent individual creator creating videos for you, the viewers, to watch on this channel. So again, in my interpretation of this guidance, this does not include me because there's no editorial control. There's no consistency in the sense that it's not 9 and 10 and 11 and 12 and 1 and 2. It's whenever I've done it. You get it as I've done it. Sometimes I schedule it to come online at a later time, but that's different. It's not a regular schedule in the way that they mean. Quality of production, again, I'd like to think my production level's gone up a bit, but it's certainly not broadcast quality. And editorial values, I've got nobody breathing down my neck telling me what I can and can't do. As you've probably gleaned from my other videos, I tend to do what I want to do. Moving on, there's one more bullet point which I think is quite interesting in this guidance, which is as follows. Now, this was in respect to the question of whether or not there is a definitive list of who is a TV company producing a television program service for the purposes of the legislation. because this is probably the most difficult one in my view, because if you're going to be prosecuted for watching a television program service produced by a television program company, there ought to be a definitive list, should there not? Because otherwise you could point and say, well, my defence is that there's a reasonable doubt as to whether or not that is a television program service. If there's a reasonable doubt, you cannot be convicted, because you have to be convicted beyond a reasonable doubt, or so that a jury or a magistrate is sure that you are guilty of the offence. If there's any reasonable doubt, i.e. if there's any reasonable doubt that it's a television program service, then you cannot be prosecuted successfully for not having a television licence and watching live TV or recording live TV and so on and so forth. However, the final bullet point is as follows. We don't produce a list of the kind you request. So there is no list. There's no definitive list of television companies producing television program services. However, it says the media landscape changes continually with new market entrants and changing services, so it simply isn't possible for TV licensing to do this. We would expect that content from the majority of independent YouTube creators wouldn't fit the criteria of a television program service. And so that, albeit guidance from the press office, so it's not a definitive statement, you understand, and it's not a definitive statement for me. It's guidance from me explaining the guidance from the press office, which I think is very helpful. So I'm very grateful to them for providing this, because I do think it provides a very helpful insight. This final sentence really coins everything together, which provides, we would expect that content from the majority of independent YouTube creators wouldn't fit the criteria of a television program service. In other words, for the majority of independent YouTube creators, you do not need a TV license, whether it's live, whether it's pre-recorded, and with all of the above in mind, it still leaves the possibility that at some point or another, a court might decide that one given YouTube creator might meet all of the sort of guidance within this section, whether the editorial control, the broadcast schedule, and all of these kind of things, whether they would all come together and definitively, it would have to be definitively in the eyes of a court, definitively label this creator as a television program service for the purposes of the legislation. I think that's quite a stretch. I don't think it will happen, certainly not in the next few years or so. That's just my view. And based on the guidance from the press office, it would seem that they agree. That's my interpretation from the wording. We would expect that content from the majority of independent YouTube creators wouldn't fit the criteria. So I hope that is helpful to support what I've always said, because it does support what I've always said. The guidance is perfectly in line with what I've always said, that YouTube creators independently doing a live stream should not fit the bill to require you to have a TV license. So again, I'd be interested in your thoughts, your comments, your questions, your follow-ups, anything else you'd like me to go back to the press office with, but I'm very grateful to them for giving me this response, albeit in the form of guidance. I understand, I can appreciate why there is no definitive list. I sort of agree that the landscape is changing. Creators are sort of coming, going, changing, and all the rest of it. But either way, it would seem for the moment that in the majority of cases, you will not need a TV license to watch YouTube creators such as me. And finally, for all of our international viewers who find this quite alien to talk about in the first place, I'm not sure how long it's going to last for, because it's going to be reviewed in a few years' time. It may well not be around in a few years' time, but for the moment, it is, believe it or not, a criminal offence to watch or record live TV without a TV license, or to use BBC iPlayer. So I hope that was enlightening. I hope you found it interesting. If you did, please smash that like button on the way out. Make sure you're subscribed. Have a great weekend, and as always, thank you for watching.